Hello and welcome to episode six of The Wizard
Priestess.
Woo!
Insert sound effects. That was good. I think we did well there.
Very happy with that.
So in our last episode, we spoke about what your intentions are. And we covered that from several different angles. And today we're really just going to touch on how to keep that going. You can connect to your intentions, your dream, your goal, your objective, but how do you get that momentum going? How do you keep that snowball effect? How do you get everything you have behind it? So we can talk about that from several viewpoints, from a counselling point of view, a coaching point of view, just a supportive friend point of view. But let's start with a slightly clinical point of view. Now, there's many different angles we can throw at it, left brain, right brain, and everything in between. So, Miss Nuala, if I was to ask you hypothetically...
Go right ahead.
Well, is there something in that for Eastern medicine, or is that not really a thing?
In terms of motivation.
Yeah. It does seem like more of a Western concept than anything else.
Yeah. I think reflecting that is probably the way that the Eastern perspective would go, is constantly reflecting upon your life, constantly being okay, how does this feel for me? Introspection, what is this showing me? Where am I feeling guided? What aspects do I need to adjust to feel really good? And so there'd be more, I think, and then upon that reflection there would be pieces of that would come through as motivation, would come through as if I'm waking up every morning and feeling really sluggish, upon reflecting that, now I understand that's not what I want to do. So does that mean maybe I just need to go to bed a little bit earlier? Maybe I could tweak my life in that way, and then by tweaking that, then you feel a bit better. So I think potentially as an aspect of motivation is in introspection, and then from that, or self-reflection, looking in and assessing what's going on. How am I feeling about this? Which is not a very Western idea, to keep checking in with yourself, although it is becoming more and more common.
It's getting there, yeah.
And so it's I think that would be the kind of initial aspect, and then the motivation would come because you want to feel well. And the more well you feel, and the more well you feel, the more capable you are for living a longer lifetime. I
think also the more I guess wellness you have, that doesn't sound right, the healthier you are, the more capacity you have to adapt in any environment. So on your journey, you're going to run into speed humps. So those speed humps are going to want to knock you off course. But then if you have the capacity, then you can adapt to that change. But you need to be healthy, or healthier at least, than you were at the start. And I think really important, almost a preface for that, your willingness to keep going. So that original goal we spoke about, I think back in the foundation days, we spoke about the willingness, and what's your conscious awareness of your willingness to participate in your own journey. Yeah. So for me, it's a minimum 7 to 8 out of 10. If you're a 4 or a 5, you're not ready to. You don't have a goal that's big enough for you that's worth changing for.
Yeah, that's a really cool thing. So think about that. Every time we make a decision or we go to do something, we want to make sure that comes from a 7 or 8. I was listening to 7 or 8 out of 10, willingness, desire, goal, orientation. I was listening to something recently, and they were saying that, if you don't have that big, yes, 100% in, it's a no. And they were sort of debunking that, saying that no, maybe not actually. Maybe you don't need the 100% yes for it to move forward. And then maybe you're suggesting that maybe it needs to be 7 or 8, because if you drop below that, if you're looking at a 6, Like, I'm just over halfway. I'm like sort of keen.
There's going to be days you just can't be bothered.
I mean, but those are days, I think that's really important. Like, we've got to remember too that with motivation, I guess we are touching in on our intentions that we kind of spoke about last time, and that for me personally, spending the month of January to like prep myself, February to
February. Oh wow! I get shit for my jokes.
Yeah, well,
set the standard good.
Well, February is a really great time, and then you just have the 11 months left to actually participate. Well, they're just participatories. But I think, like, so where we're moving from is that idea. So if you have this inclination to, or I really want to try this thing this year, I'm going to get really fit, I'm going to run a marathon. But the feeling of doing that doesn't scare you enough, urge you enough, motivate you enough to sit over a 6. So you're looking at, okay, I want to do that enough that I'm committed to doing something out of my comfort zone. So let's say it's 7 days a week, 4 out of those 7 days of the week. That's about 70% of the week.
Yeah.
So I have to be committed 4 days of the week to actually want that. That's a desire enough, or a demonstration of desire.
There's got to be something in your day that goes towards that.
Yeah, and maybe not every day, but 70% of those days.
Yeah.
70 to 80% of those days. Yeah. And I guess that's something from as a
clinician. How do you work with that from a clinical point of view?
If someone's at 5, if someone's at a 5 out of 10 in their healing journey, generally they choose to drop off. That, like we talked about originally, they won't continue. And that's okay. That's not the way that I practice mightn't be for them. And that's just that. But I find that if I have someone in my room, on my table, interested and motivated enough, they might be at that, maybe they're at a 6 and they're at a tipping point. I generally am able to motivate them enough to do the small little things. And I think that's one of those things that I find personally in practice and as a person, like what I do at home is just I try and break it down into really small pieces. And so however I'm moving, it's just really baby steps.
It can get quite overwhelming at times.
Absolutely. So
breaking it down is a really good point.
And so for me, it's just that can be the simplest thing. Yeah. I made last year I swam in the ocean. I aimed to swim in the ocean every day. And for the first 6 months of the year, I did. Every single day. I didn't miss a single day. Then it got a bit cold. I went overseas, came back, and it was too cold, and my body was not coping. I was getting really, really, really freezing cold at about 10 a.m. in the morning, and I'm like, this actually isn't serving me. As much as I want to keep going, I have to put this on the shelf for the moment.
Yeah.
And so for me, that went from 100%, 10 out of 10 commitment, motivation, to below the 5. And I just chose, introspected, reflected, and understood that actually wasn't really serving me right now. I'm not going to do that.
Then when you came to that realisation, did you find that you had another goal, or at least you stuck to your value set? So you had at least a direction to head in that regard?
I'd say no. I would say that I wasn't like, I didn't fill it. I didn't fill the hole with something else, which would have been probably a great idea. I didn't try and, now I'm going to go running instead. Or like, now I'm going to, I just was like, okay, that's gone now. Maybe I pivoted a little bit and did more of other things.
Maybe subconsciously you knew you only needed it for 6 months. But consciously we told ourselves a story, and that's the story gap, where a lot of people get lost.
Yes.
With being able to keep it going, because the story they tell themselves is different to what they tell the world. So it becomes that discord between them and themselves, but also them and what they perceive the world to be, and how they perceive they are being perceived by the world. Yeah. That creates a lot of discord, and then you end up wearing masks.
Absolutely. And I think that's sort of like, if we bring that back to the intention and motivation and staying motivated for the long haul, really remembering that you can pivot, that pivots are available to you, and that you don't have to, just because you made a specific intention for particular aspects of your life, at any point in time, you can adjust those. And I think that's, for me personally, was the swimming every day. It started to get too cold for me. I wasn't coping. It wasn't feeling good anymore. And for me, there was like, okay, I'm pivoting away from that. So yeah, I didn't continue doing anything. I didn't fill my cup. I didn't feel it more. I may have just adjusted to other goals that I had on my list. And I think that if we think about the longevity of a year, being really conscious of, being really conscious of what we keep replaying in our minds of, like, you know, recently I spoke a lot with a friend, and I was in a circle with another lady, and we were talking about this idea of pleasing everyone. And so that's kind of, I think, part of that gap that you're talking about is this idea that, well, I've told you that I'm going to keep going, so I better keep going, because we don't have that self knowing and belief, and that we are enough as we are, and it doesn't really matter if we do what we say we're going to do for ourselves. Maybe if we say we're going to pick someone up from the shops and we walk home, I forgot about you, whatever, that might be a different feeling. But when it comes to ourselves and we have that self-motivation, I think it is really important to just remember or be reminded that we may come from a space of lack, and we can, you know, utilize people like coaches, clinicians.
So many coaches out there.
Yeah. And I think
they all have their place, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, and I think that is just that reminder that sometimes we need an external force, and that could just be our partner, could be a good friend. You know, there's enough research out there to suggest and state that if you are exercising with a friend, you are like 10 times more likely, or like you've got like a 70% conversion rate or whatever that's called, like a actual fun, like you're going to do that because you are unlikely to let your friend down, because you are, you know, maybe afraid of them feeling disappointed with you, especially women, I would say, because we have this feeling that we need to stay connected and we'll do anything to maintain that friendship without conflict. So you've kind of got like, you're really unlikely to not commit or not continue. Yeah,
that's a good point. I think while you're keeping the momentum going, and let's say you experience a person-place thing that's very antagonistic to that intention.
Another word for antagonistic too.
The speed hump.
Yeah.
Big curveball towards your goal. It's really important to have that dream team around you. And it could be partner, kids, best friend, mentor, coach, therapist, whoever that is for you. Having that team around you to fall back on, and just to get like a little prep up when you just need that. Sometimes you need that little bit extra because we're fatigued trying to please everyone else, and we don't give that to ourselves, but then, you know, life knocks us down a little bit. We don't have the capacity for a time, but we have that dream team behind us. It's a really good call.
Yeah, and I think just reminding yourself that, okay, you know, when you set your intention, where do those intentions even come from?
Are they yours?
Yeah, and that is it, right? Are they mine? Where are they coming from? And how do they really feel in my body? And how do they feel in the way that I'm actioning those? Or, you know, what am I gaining from that?
Like 2 years ago, I was approached by this lady, and she wanted to run a marathon. And I could see, you know, in the assessment, she wasn't all there, as in she was maybe a 4 or 5 out of 10 committed. And we finished the assessment, and I was writing the program for her. I said, "Why are you doing this?" She said, "Oh, because, you know, I want to run with my husband and blah, blah, blah." I said, "Okay, why are you really doing this?" And she just paused for about 10 seconds. She said, "Well, he said something to me, I think it was last Christmas by then, that really got to me. And now I've agreed to run the marathon. I actually just want to be." I said, "Good. Now we're getting somewhere." And long story short, about 18 months after that, she ran the race and beat you. So you go, girl.
Yeah, absolutely. And like a bit of a reminder that, that you can do anything you put your mind to with the right supports in place. And also a bit of a reminder of like, really checking in, because I think it's really quite common that we do things out of competition and spite. And I mean, stoked for her to achieve her dreams, but also mindful of the like maybe the venom that sparked the.
Yeah.
And I think that's cool. Like, you know, we see that all the time, and in the Western world, that's really normal. Like, oh yeah, you know, I watched them climb the ladder and I knew I could do it too, so I fucking did it. And it's like, interesting. Because, I mean, mainly from a perspective, from me, it's like when we're moving from a lack of heart center, when we don't actually move from love, we're moving off love. And, man, I'm not like...
We're coming from the lower chakras, the lower energy centers.
Absolutely. And I'm not saying I don't move from that place at times, but it's definitely a bit of a reminder that when I do move from my heart center and I move in a way that feels really powerful and honoring, everything flows and everything feels really good and
lighter.
And so much lighter.
Which is really helpful for a marathon.
Absolutely. I mean, maybe by the time she got 18 months in and trained hard enough and was committed enough and had the 9 out of 10, like maybe at that point she didn't really have that same determination, like that pressured, venomous determination. It actually came from another place of like, wow, I actually really enjoy running now. And that's really beautiful in a way. And I guess like in saying that then, like maybe that's just her journey and story. Like, and I think a lot of people do have that. It's like it started a bit venomous. It started maybe from a bad place.
Starting at a spot.
And then it moves up through the chakra, and then all of a sudden we've found samadhi here. We're like, oh, wow, here I am. I don't know, I would say that it'd be really cool if humans today could start reflecting more, and especially when it comes to being motivated, understand where our motivations are. I know personally I have done a lot of striving in my life, and a friend of ours when we were in Sweden, he has had a really big time in recent years. He lost his father in a tragic accident, and then his wife or fiance lost her dad in a tragic accident, and it's like they both are, you know, really working through that, and he's come to a point in his life where he's like, just like check yourself, you know, because what's important. And it was really cool because he was reminding me of how, you know, what are you striving for or where you're striving from? And he's like, because you might just have a noose around your neck that's actually pulling you up the mountain or pulling you to, you know, make gains in the corporate world or whatever. Wasn't me, but, you know, that idea of like, I'm going to get to the top. It's like, but majority of the time when we go in with that goal, it's not a heart-centered goal. It might get you where you wanted to go, that bit of tick, that bit of venom, that bit of like spite, whatever that feeling is inside of you. But what I found upon reflection of that was that, wow, most of that came from a place of lack, and most for me personally came from this feeling of being, actually I was just being tugged up the hill by my ego. I had a noose around my neck and I was being pulled. And when I kind of dropped out of that after coming back from Sweden, I got more clear on what it is that lights me up, and I've flowed from that place. And I can't say that the millions of dollars have started flowing in or something miraculous.
We've spoken about it before.
However, I definitely feel that I move now more from a centered place, and I am not trying to achieve things that feel out of my current reach. And just being really humbled in who I am and where I am. I might be mid-30s. I might be, you know, not where I had have thought I would be when I was 20, but I'm okay. I'm really happy with who I am and where I am. And it's just that landing into that, and that motivates me. And that just keeps me, you know, I actually only have to take one step at a time. And I am on the ladder, or I am at this point, I'm at this rung right now. And it's a great rung.
So for someone, let's say they didn't know if it was, let's say a good, well, I don't want to use the word good or bad.
You used it.
I did.
Try another one.
Okay. Let's say their goal, their intention. How would you explain to someone whether it's coming from the heart or, let's say, the base level chakras, which kind of correlate to our survival mode? So fear. How do you know if you're acting out of fear or love?
Well, I can only say how it feels for me, and then I can tell you how I support someone to understand that for themselves.
Go, girl.
So for me, when I'm acting from love, it feels good. It sparks joy, and it creates this vibration of enjoyment. And I'm feeling happy about that. And
it's sustainable.
And it is a sustainable feeling. And it's not that you always feel happy, but it is, it can sometimes be excited, but it can also just be like a mellow tone of like contentment.
Yeah.
And I think that is when I know that what I'm choosing from my heart. I don't tend to act from fear, and I definitely see a lot of people moving from fear in this world.
I'd say most.
Yeah. And it makes sense because we are sold fear, left, right and centre.
Yeah, that's another podcast.
Yeah. So when I have a patient, and let's say I have someone in pain, or I have someone wanting an outcome, a particular health outcome. So they're coming to me and they're saying, I want this. Can you help me?
Yeah.
And most of the time with that, I make them reflect on that.
Okay.
And so if they're in pain, it is more of a like, okay, get out of pain, okay. And we have to go in and I try and find, well, obviously the basics of like, when did the pain start? And I'm talking chronic pain, not like a particular injury.
Right.
Not so long ago, I had a patient in and he had this pain, and it was so clear to me that he wasn't looking after himself. And when I pointed these things out, and you know, from his perspective, he's like, I exercise, I work hard, I play hard, I look after myself, I eat salad, you know, and I was like, fantastic. And I know that he does do quite really well, you know, but I'm like, you don't drink water, you drink 6 coffees a day, you don't like, if you slow down, you feel shit. Like that's a massive red flag. Because you shouldn't have to keep going all the time to feel good. And like you're burning the candle, you're flogging the candle at both ends. You're not even just burning it, you're snapping it up, like ripping it off. And I think that's the thing. Like we used to just burn the candle at both ends, but now we just snap the candle in half and we're like, yeah, you know, it's just like, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So yeah, for that, from that perspective, I just try and keep coming in, and I usually use humor, and I'm usually like, oh yeah, you're fucked. And then they're like, and I'm like, but you know what, simple changes, let's just add some more water into your day, or let's like add a bit of more space in your weekend. And I often ask, you know, that's those reflective questions. Like from his perspective, he just had pain. Like, just fix me pain. Yeah. Acupuncture's good for like I've heard the needles is great for the pain. Just get the needles in there, whip it out. Let's get rid of this pain.
They are magic.
They do work very well. But it is this just reminder of like, okay, yeah, but what I'm doing is I'm actually like I'm putting a needle in an energy pathway. Yeah. And that energy pathway is going to communicate to your whole body. And the way that acupuncture works from my perspective personally is that we have this internal external system, and that is part of the emotional, physical, mental and spiritual load, and it's all one in the same. And so we use these points to communicate to every layer. And in communicating with every layer, we're able to actually support real healing. And pain is fantastic, especially chronic pain, because it actually allows you to find it from these levels and move from that. So that would be something with a patient that is like kind of not 100% like, or what we're talking about is just that idea of like, okay, I have this goal, help me achieve it.
That's coming from fear.
Yeah.
That's not a...
Yeah, just that kind of reminder of like, okay, let's reflect, let's go back in, let's figure out where this may have all started from. We might not find the beginning, and a lot of the time, like I've had a patient come in and, you know, she had hormonal things, and you know, her period had stopped for months, and then we like kind of backtracked, and like I was just trying to get her to reflect. I'm like, so when did the anxiety start? When did this emotion that was kind of feeding into this, you know, low weight and all these things. I'm like, where did that all start from? She's like, oh yeah, it started from in kindergarten. I experienced this thing, and then it, you know, in year 6 I experienced this next thing that like brought on this next experience, and then the next, and I'm like, you knew this, you've known this. How is this coming out now, and what is that? And I'm like, I'm not doing anything special. I'm just asking you a few basic questions from my perspective. And it just feels, it's a bit of that like kind of reminder of like, okay, where are you at? And where, you know, coming back to that, what level are you ready and willing to heal? And where's that desire and motivation coming from? Because that is it. That is it every time, isn't it? Like we can have the desire, but if it's not coming from a heart-centered place and we are moving from fear, we'll get over it.
I think sometimes you can use the fear, not in a like that kind of way, but like you can use that as a motivator. So if you keep doing what you're doing, you're just going to hurt more. So you can use someone's nightmare to help encourage their dream. And
however, if their dream is that's different. That's actually using fear as a motivation. But if you're short term, right? But if they're using fear to actually want their gains, like if they are,
well, that's how they live their life.
Well, that's different. That I feel is quite a different thing. Like if you are trying to make a decision out of fear of, you know, oh, someone's going to judge me, so I better do it this way, and I'm committed, I'm 100% committed, I think it's really difficult to get your outcome. It's like the whole, you know, Abraham Hicks, we spoke about her last time. It's like it's just that literal reminder of like when you let go and go down the stream and go with, everything comes. But we are so like wound up in our world to not go with the flow, not go down the stream, because it's sort of it's sort of weird, you know, you're meant to hustle, man, you know, it's like you got to hustle, you got to work hard, and then you know people aren't working hard. You're like, well, you know, I kind of get that sometimes.
At least look productive.
Yeah, come on, you better work, you know, you've got to look up. And I'm like, oh, like I feel like I'm doing a bloody big job. I've got kids to look after and I'm working.
There's a bit going on.
And they're like, well, yeah, you just got to kind of work harder if you want.
Yeah, if you don't work 20 hours a day, you're bludgeoning.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's our culture.
Yeah.
I think that plays a part in the keeping the motivation going as well, because we have to work so much and look busy and be everything for everyone, but we forget to be that for ourselves often as well. And I brought the fear thing up because when we are let's say someone's in physical pain. If someone is in physical pain and they want to run the marathon, hypothetically, then they're going to reach out to a therapist of some kind. And is it the love of the marathon that they want to run? Is that driving them, or is it the fear of being in more pain? That's the first thing I want to clarify with them first. And there's no right or wrong answer. The answer is that's their subjective kind of reality. So we work with whatever we work with. But when we are in physical pain, we do go into survival mode very easily. So we drop brain function down to the brainstem, go into what essentially is called reptilian mode. So then our capacity really only revolves around three things.
In reptilian.
Yeah, that's safety, sustenance, and sex, usually in that order. So that's all we have the capacity to.
Is that a male thing with the sex, or is it also? Right, obviously, because you've got to have babies. Yeah. Okay, go.
So that's what Paul McLean would call the triune brain, but that's another chat. So the point I'm making is when we drop into that brain function, it can be very difficult to see that overarching goal because you're down in that brain function.
Okay. You're
coming from a survival mode. So the more survival mode you're in, the more self-centered you're likely to become. Because you need to be out of a means of survival.
Right.
And the less capacity for another you also have. So I think that's just important to put out there and recognise as well, because we can't just talk about all of the good and all of the bad. You need to put it all on the table. because a lot of people are in that and they don't even know it, right? So I'm just saying, you can use the good and you can also use a bit of the quote unquote bad.
Right, so we can use heart-centered motivation, but you can also use fear. You feel you can use a bit of fear.
You can use fear. For me, it's healthy to use fear as long as you're conscious of it.
Okay, but if you're in the reptilian brain, you are not using that fear from it.
No, you're running for your life.
Yeah. And that's probably majority of the people we see.
That's everyone, right?
Yeah.
Our phone doesn't ring because people are having a good time.
No.
That would be a nice change for it.
Well, I have to admit that I do
except when you call
have the joy.
Loving life.
Absolutely. Look at me thriving. No, I do have the very privileged position of supporting pregnant women, and most of the time I'm just supporting them. And pregnancy is just the most beautiful it is a very beautiful time, and it is a magical spiritual experience for women, and they can drop in or not to that space. But I think that, they tend to be well, my patients. They tend to be well. And when I see them, it's less about fixing something, which, sometimes anomalies pop up. We sort that out. But most of the time it is maintaining wellness through pregnancy. And so, I do have some very joyful times, and I think pregnancy is one of my clinic commonalities. Though the people that tend to walk their pregnancy with me, we tend to have, they tend to be coming in well. It's not common, if I've treated someone throughout pregnancy, that they are coming in feeling poorly often.
Okay. So you are keeping them going. Maybe.
Or they just have enough motivation, and maybe little, those little words and things that I give them is just enough to keep them on the same trajectory, on that vibratory direction that just keeps them going. And that's one of my, one of the things that I find women see before they fall pregnant. They tend to think that pregnancy is a disease that they need to they can, well, maybe not before pregnancy, but once you once you are pregnant, you're being treated as if this is a medical event, this is danger, this is this is unfathomable that you can hold the baby, we better check it, we better we need to do all these things to make sure that everything's safe and fine. And then you come into my clinic and I'm like, that's so beautiful. You are amazing. You are the creator of heaven on earth. Look at who you are. Understand that, believe that, know that. And then remember you're a fucking animal that can birth a baby and look after a baby. You just need the right supports in place to ensure that you are able to heal, and you are the center of the universe. And I think our world is very much has lost touch on that. But most of the time, because, a woman is maybe still floating around in a world where she's pregnant or whatever. But once you have a baby, it's a different story in a sense, because it's difficult. There's more difficulties because you have another human to look after, or other humans, more than one. So if
we knew what a big deal being human was, not only physically but metaphysically. Tell you what, there'd be no disease. It would drop significantly. The magic that is a human being. We've just lost connection to it.
And it is, and I think let's bring it back to that idea of motivation, and from my perspective, moving from heart center and being, motivated from that space that is this superpower. And, the more we just flow and move in this world in a way that feels good, because, I'm sure the hustlers there are people that move from that place in heart. I don't think there's meant to be 99% of the world like that, but I think that there could be a small percentage of people that actually is their heart center, that is their gravitational pull. But it's everyone's gravitational pull, and that is where you start to question, okay, does this feel good for you? And most of the time it doesn't. And I don't know that when I've asked those questions, like there's a few, you know, different bits and pieces, and I definitely have patients who try to have babies and some of their partner, they're just not in it. The partner doesn't care if there's a baby or not, and the mother is doing everything she can. And you just like...
That's like the opposite of love.
Totally.
Just apathy.
And I just wonder, you know, I'm like, is this really the guy for you? But I mean, I'm going to support you no matter what you choose. But I just, or even the, you know, partner, is this the partner for you? Or, you know, is this the right thing for you? But yeah, even on that reflection, and usually, you know, there's so many mixed and like a lot of work to unpack, but the process and the focus, I've come to you for an outcome. And so you will support me with that or help me with that. And that we do. Like the lady with the marathon with the venom in her heart, she just kept going. And I mean, I'm stoked for her. 18 months, figured it out and like did the thing. But then what is that? Like that, is it a healthy form of competition to like...
Well, towards the end, it was more, she wasn't so much relying on the venom. So elegantly put it, she was not a snake or a lizard or whatever else has venom.
In that reptilian space anymore. But I think that's really good, right? It's reptilian movement, right? It's that the venom that comes from that is just like, you know, I've got to like...
It was a good jump start for her, but then in the end, for her, it was more of okay, now I know I can beat him. That's enough for me. Just as her in her own little being.
Totally, and I'm not, there's no judgment on her, it's just that reminder.
We don't judge him.
No, absolutely not. And that's it too, like that, it's just sort of a bit of a reminder of, okay, where are we moving from? And I think when we come to the beginning of the year, and we've moved through February, like we want to kind of now enjoy Perciperaries. And when we do that really well, we can actually really enjoy the year. And I have to say that, you know, this year's already started off with a bang, and I'm feeling so excited just to move in this way. And I think that, I mean, obviously I'm growing bigger and bigger by the minute. However, I feel really solid in that. And I think that it's a really, like I'm in a real special space. So I'm just got one foot on the ground and the other hand up in heaven. So I'm like just a channel of fucking joy.
Well, feel free to bring that joy anytime. You'd like on my door for a treatment.
It's actually been quite. I haven't even had a treatment in quite a time.
Actually.
Maybe it's time for a treatment. But yeah, just a reminder to you all that are listening to our little banter over here is just that reminder to have your support system in place if you need it, in whatever way. Because, you know, some people don't really need people. They kind of just have that self-motivation. But just I would suggest, like, check in with yourself and keep going back and reflecting upon, okay, is this serving me now? Does this feel good? And, you know what, if you've got a goal or had a goal and you went from being 10 out of 10 committed to that goal and then it sort of dropped off, you can do that. That's one of these. You don't have to
do everything that you said you were going.
Said you would. No. And like, gosh, isn't that like
that's such a Western thing.
It's such a thing. I mean, I loved both my degrees that I've completed. Maybe not the thesis at the end of my master's, but I actually really like... It's on the wall. Matt is just pointing at my certificates, but pieces of paper. But at the end of the day, for me, that felt really good. But there was a part of me, like at some point, I've done other things, and my partner's been like, you know, you don't have to finish that, and I'm like, oh, fully, you know. Like,
that's a really interesting point. So I was treating a lady last year, and she's got, I think she's 6 degrees in stuff. It's like she's addicted to study. But she's so intellectual, but she hasn't experienced any of it.
Oh, right.
So I asked her the question, have you actually learnt anything then? Because Rudolf Steiner once said once new knowledge is acquired, it must be experienced. at least 3 times before it's learnt.
Mm.
So she hasn't experienced it. Smart as hell.
Yeah.
Obviously, she can read a book.
Yeah.
But there's no experience.
And I would call that experience embodiment.
Mm.
It's like
Absolutely.
you can have everything in your brain, but if that's not physically trickled through your physicality, which then is in your vessel, which is then in your emotional, spiritual and mental capacity. Like, you can have everything mentally, but if it's not everywhere, it's not embodied. And then if it's not embodied, it's never felt. And then
it's not experience. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
The experience.
Human experiences.
The soul wants the experience.
Absolutely.
That's what it's here for.
Well, so we're not really human beings then, are we?
Oh, did we?
Hang on a minute. Then if we've got to experience everything, then we're going to do everything. Then we're going to be busy doers again.
We're just going to be everything.
We just got to be everything.
Yeah.
And be everything.
We've moved anthropomorphically through the animal kingdom, which transcends and includes the previous density, if you will.
Oh, so we did come from apes?
No.
We never came from apes?
I don't think so.
Right, so you're just saying that, what do you mean? What are you talking about now?
I was going to get started on a very long tangent.
All right, well, we won't go there. So just a little gentle reminder that don't worry if you want to change your mind. You are enough and bloody amazing, and everything that you did through February is enough. And you can continue to enjoy the months ahead.
Officially graduated from Nuala School of English. And I would just add that if you do feel like you're falling off that intention just a little bit and you are wanting to get back, there are many ways that you can see where you're out of balance. The yin and the yang of everything, that is polarity. And just keep in mind that there are choices that you can make that are going to take you closer or further away from that original intention, and just being conscious of that in any moment. That will give you, essentially, that goes a long way to get your power back.
Yeah. And so you just keep following your heart and just keep standing in your power.
Boom.
Wizard and Priestess, signing out.
You've been listening to The Wizard and the Priestess. Thanks for stopping by. Stay connected and be open.